Hello and welcome to another episode of Think Your Way to an Epic Life. Thank you so much for sharing your time, and your time will be very well spent today. We have a guest with us that is a very passionate leader. He's a very passionate, good feeling good man, and we're going to get to know him a little bit better. Stephen did something that was really interesting. He did a solo ride around the entire United States. It was 13,000 miles, 34 days, and 34 states. He did all that to raise awareness and to raise money for veterans. And so this is a man who truly walks his talk, and we're going to learn a ton from him today. Strap in and let's do it. Stephen, welcome to the podcast.
Kara, thanks for having me. Appreciate you spending the time and giving me the opportunity to talk to your listeners and your viewers. I'm a big fan. I know that you're full throttle, and that's kind of the space I live in, so let's roll.
Let's roll. I didn't mention that he wrote a book about that 1,300. 1,300. I bet he wishes it was 1,300. Sorry about that. 13,000 mile trek. And so he wrote a book and all the lessons that he learned from the seat of his motorcycle. We're going to dig into some of those starting right now. So, Stephen, give us a clue. Where did your leadership bent begin?
Well, I'm a military kid. I'm a son of a veteran and a nephew and a brother of veterans. So for me, I always saw military service in the light of leadership, doing something selfless for others. So I grew up with that. It became sort of part and parcel of my life. My father also was one of the first generation sales trainers, motivational speakers. So I grew up with people who some of your listeners and viewers may know names of people like Cavett Robert, or Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, Zig Ziglar, Dr. Bob Richards, who was an Olympic champion and became a motivational speaker. So these were people that were in my house all the time. Now, I didn't fully appreciate all the good leadership lessons I was getting at the time. These were just kind of cool dudes. But they definitely influenced me. And then along the way, I've had opportunities to build my own business and lead people professionally. So it all sort of comes together as things do in life.
That is so exciting. I mean, I literally cannot imagine the head start that you had in life with that kind of influence, because the statistics tell us that most people, 80% of their thoughts are negative. You, on the other hand, you walked out of your household, and what percent of negative thoughts do you think you had?
Oh, listen, I'm not special in that respect. I was a 10-year-old, 9-year-old, 12-year-old, et cetera kid. I wanted to go play baseball and ride bikes and ride mini bikes. So I didn't fully appreciate it at the time. However, I look back on it now, all these years later at age 68, and say, gosh, some of the top motivational minds in our country, in the world probably, were sitting around my Sunday dinner table. Or I would go to their conferences because I wanted to hang out with my dad, and I would have a front row seat to an event that people were paying a lot of money to go and learn how to be better salespeople, be better entrepreneurs, lead better in their communities. So it definitely, hindsight's beautiful. At the time, I probably just wanted to get out of the house, but I do remember and am very grateful for those opportunities.
No doubt. So one of the questions I think most people would have is, were they the same people behind the camera that they are in front of the camera?
Oh, absolutely. Cavett Robert, who, interestingly enough, was a crime-busting attorney with Tom Dewey. He prosecuted gangsters. He ended up, to improve himself, becoming a Toastmaster Award winner, and he founded the National Speakers Association, which is the association that I belong to. So, in fact, my mentor, who tried to get me to go into this business, by the way, and that wasn't my first path. He was absolutely who he was. And Art Linkletter, who at the time was a major television personality, and had a show called Kids Say the Darndest Things, and it was amazing. He probably got that idea from hanging out with me, actually, because from things. But no, they were genuine, and they were just, it was a great group of men who were committed to building a profession and teaching people how to get where they wanted to go. Great lesson if you're riding on a motorcycle. You want to get where you want to go.
Very true. So tell us a little bit more about what did you learn on that incredible trek across all around, I shouldn't say across, but all around our country. What were some of the lessons you took away for leadership from that?
Well, I would say the lessons started even before I got on the bike. That ride was part of a bucket list, a biker bucket list. It's something that every biker wants to do. They want to do a perimeter ride of the country. It's the granddaddy of all rides. And I have a group of guys I've been riding with for a long time. We said we were going to do it. We planned it for a long time. Life intruded, things happened, and it never materialized. Once I was introduced to a great organization called the Boot Campaign, which is the organization that I supported, that really is dedicated to helping veterans and military members and families transition. I said, okay, well, now we've got a reason to ride, not just our ride, which is another leadership lesson, by the way. You can do a lot of things because you want to do them, or because you can do them, or because you think they'll be fun. And that's all good. We should all have bucket lists, but a bucket list that's me focused and not we focused will never be sustainable, because at some point you'd be really tired of me telling you about the fun biker ride I had at some point. But if I could say, but let me tell you about the people that I met along the way. Let me share stories of veterans, Gold Star family members, current serving members of the military who are dealing with some pretty incredible life challenging issues. They lost a loved one. They'd lost a limb in the combat service. They were having trouble transitioning. And to meet those people along the way completely by accident, some were planned events, but a lot of them were you meet somebody in a coffee shop or at the gas pump. And so what I learned on that ride are a couple things. The first one was we live in an amazingly beautiful, big country. And I don't know that we always appreciate that in the environment that we live in today. This country is amazing. It's beautiful, it's grand, it's expansive, and it's got some incredible natural wonders. You ought to get out and see it. It's pretty inspiring. The second thing I learned is a motorcycle is a great icebreaker. People love to walk up to people on motorcycles and go, "Hey, where are you from? Where are you going? Tell me about your bike." And so that gave me an opportunity to ask questions. Well, tell me about you. So I met a ton of people in roadside attractions and rest stops and restaurants and gas stations. And they were just so warm. I'll tell you one story that sort of sealed it for me. Near the end of the ride, because I started in Texas and I headed east, so that's the way I went, because I wanted the Gulf on the throttle side of the bike every day and the sun in my face. So as I made my way around and we're finishing up, I was in California. It had been a long time since I'd been home, and it had been a long time since I'd had a home cooked meal. And I was fortunate. There was a lot of publicity about this ride, so I would get calls from all kinds of organizations. Can you come by? Can you speak? Can we donate? And I actually got an email from a woman who I did not recognize at the time, and she was the wife of a Navy veteran. Later, I found out all four of these women who ended up having me to their house for dinner. That was the gist of the email. They said, "We want to cook you a home cooked meal." So I went to their home. All of their sons were Navy SEALs. They were all deployed. This is in 2013. They were still very much in harm's way. So it was nice to just say, someone just reached out and saw what I was doing and invited me to have dinner in their home. By the way, that would have never happened if the biker ride was all about Stephen Foster, which it wasn't. It was actually not about me at all. It was about the people that I could serve and the people that we could help raise funds for. And so that's what I learned, is that we're really connected as a country if we just get out of our own way and start with goodness, start with service to others. We win.
Every time. Every time. And you mentioned maybe it was pre recording, you mentioned that service is the way that you lead, period, that it's got to be service. I see that the world is changing from the way it used to be, the top-down management kind of thing. However, I think a lot of people really still don't get that, don't understand it completely. What would you say to if you had an opportunity, and something else that you said was I want to work with the people who want to go. And I think what a lot of people do is they want to take the people they want to go with them, and those people don't want to go. How do you advise them about letting the people stay who don't want to go with you?
I think you and I were talking earlier before we began our official conversation about my vision and my thought about leadership. And for me, leadership is we focused, not me focused. So when I work with a client or I meet someone, a self-professed leader, mentally my clock starts to run and I listen for how many times they say I, my, me. I can't tell you how many times I've sat at a corporate board retreat facilitating leadership, and the CEO will get up and go, well, my team and I this and me this. And what I remind them is that, leadership is a we focused. It's not done in a vacuum. If you could lead by yourself, you wouldn't need a team. You could just go out and make things happen. So I encourage people who aspire to be leaders. I encourage people who are in leadership positions to audit themselves a little bit and say, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? Think of it like a motorcycle ride. Where do you want to go? How do you plan to get there? Who's going to come along with you? What do you all need to be successful? And most importantly, why does it matter beyond what you want? Because I'm going to tell you something. You can hit all the goals in the world in your sales organization. You can hit all the metrics. But if everybody who is part of that success and accomplishment doesn't feel recognized, rewarded, and feels like they got what they wanted, then that ride is a failure and it is not sustainable. So you did a one-off. You won little W, but you didn't win. And so you've really got to be, I think today, especially with the changing demographics and the young people that are coming into the workforce and some of the older people are even coming back in, is we all want to feel like we're part of something. We all need to be valued for our contributions. That is motorcycling 101. We move together, we communicate, we know where we're going, we know what the fuel in the tank is, we know we got to stop and get off the bike and take a breath. That's how you do it. That, to me, that's what leadership is. It's selfless service to something bigger than yourself.
Well, you seem to really walk your talk. Can you tell us about your role as the ambassador to the boot campaign?
Absolutely. We talk about that all day. Just a little quick background. The boot campaign was founded by 5 amazing women in Texas who read a book called Lone Survivor as part of their book club. They were inspired by that book. They said, let's do something. How can we give back? They came up with what smart Texas women always do. They went to an RV Navy store. They got all the swag. They went to a park in Tyler, Texas, stuck a flag in the ground, a pair of boots, and said, hey, come take a freedom selfie. Put money in the boot. Local newspaper picked up the story. It went viral. And pretty soon people were calling them saying, how can I donate to your nonprofit? That's a very cool thing. We want to get our boots on. But they didn't have a nonprofit. It was a one-off. So they founded this 501c3, which is, now going gangbusters every year since its inception back in 2009. The boot campaign has delivered $1 million every year directly into their health and wellness program. They are a Gold Star rated nonprofit. Check them out on www.bootcampaign.com. So that's how they started. Now, here's the connection. At the same time these 5 women are reading that book, I'm reading it because a friend of mine said, you're a military kid. You like the military. You should read this book. And I was just like, wow. And I don't know if you've read the book or seen the movie, but if you haven't, read the book and see the movie. And so when a mutual friend introduced us, I went, oh, yeah, but you started because of Lone Survivor. I read that book too. So there was a little bit of another, it was supposed to happen. We were supposed to meet. And so I said, listen, I donated some money originally. I put a little drop in the bucket, but I really wanted to, I just love their vision. Their vision statement is when they come back, we give back. And that just really resonated with
Ooh.
me. And so I said, how can I be involved? And they said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, hey, let me put together a motorcycle ride for you. So we started about doing that. That ended up being a motorcycle ride with the cast of the FX television show Sons of Anarchy. So we got to do a motorcycle ride with a fictional motorcycle club. And I sort of became their motorcycle ambassador. Served on their advisory board. We host a big event for them every year, their holiday event where we curate Christmases for veteran families. So it's just a good grassroots organization that's serving a community that has served all of us. You don't have to served in the military. I didn't. I'm a military kid. You don't have to serve in the military. You don't even have to know someone in the military. But here's what you do need to know. There are people serving in the military for you today. They always have since our country was founded. And they never ask for help. They just go do a very thankless, dangerous job. And so for me, where I want to spend my time in terms of giving back in the nonprofit space, there are a lot of great causes. I'm involved with many with our goodness initiatives. But for me, the veteran space is my heart. It's my family. And the boot campaign is just one of those sustainable, meaningful, very impactful groups. So that's why I still work and serve with them today.
That's amazing. When they come home, I actually was thinking about this on the ride in to here this morning. And I know when people get out of prison, a lot of times they are afraid to leave prison. They are afraid because they don't have anybody on the outside. They don't know how they're going to get a meal. They're afraid. I had never really equated that to somebody who leaves the military. That is their lifestyle. They've been in there sometimes for 20 years, and now they have to come back to the disrespect of the world. What is it? What do they need the most?
Well, it's interesting. The military is like any other ecosystem. It has its own culture, its own rules and regulations, its own rules of engagement, if you will. And it's highly structured and it's highly accountable. By the way, none of those really sound like the corporate world at all, does it? We're a little bit of the Wild West. So when a 23-year-old young man who's been an Army sniper or a 24-year-old woman who's been a helicopter pilot comes out of that environment, high stress, high expectation, constant education, constant training, and they come into what gently could be called a pretty loose environment, they don't even speak the same language we do. The accountabilities aren't the same. The expectations aren't the same. Certainly the camaraderie. I hear that a lot. The brotherhood and the sisterhood that exists in the military, not so much out here. So for them, it literally it's like stepping off of a rocket ship onto a foreign planet, right? You've got to reintegrate and relearn, and you're disconnected from the things that are so familiar to you. And so that is really the source of most of the challenges that our veterans have. And it doesn't matter rank. It could be the lowest private to the four-star Navy SEAL admiral. They are reintegrating. And so we need to provide them resources, support, references that help them make that transition from the military to civilian, because it is a big jump. And it's rarely easy. It's rarely easy.
And I do believe I am very pro-military and always have been. However, I've never really thought about the reality of going from this incredibly structured world to, whoa, like you said, the Wild West. And so boots on the ground sounds like fabulous. It is boots on the ground.
The boot campaign.
The boot campaign, my bad. The boot campaign.
It is boots on the ground for sure. It's about the whole the reason I connected just emotionally, besides my relationship to the military as a family member, is if you think about it, and I did this every day, by the way, I wore a pair of boot campaign combat boots every day on that 34-day, 35 state, 13,000-mile ride. And I don't know if you've ever put on combat boots, but you can't slip into them. You have to lace them up. There's a very deliberate time allocated activity. And so when I would lace those boots up every day, it was a constant reminder to me that somewhere in a foreign land, there was a young man or a young woman who I didn't know who were doing the same thing I was doing. They were lacing up their boots, except for I was getting ready to go out on a very fun, free, nobody was trying to kill me motorcycle ride. Well, maybe some cars distracted listening to their iTunes were, but they were actually in harm's way. And so for me, it was motivation every day. It didn't matter if it was raining, if it was cold, if it was whatever it was. I was not going to not get on that bike and go to the next leg because it wasn't about Stephen Foster. And that's what I loved about the boot campaign, just from a heart perspective, is it's all about lacing up your boots and serving others. That's what our military does every day.
Wonderful. Thank you for what you're doing in your service. So you also are a consultant. What does that look like?
Well, mostly I live in the corporate and association world. So I work with corporate boards, member-based associations to help them strategize their ride for the year, whatever that might be. And that ride usually needs to be fueled. So we've got to talk about finances and budget. It has to be staffed. So that means we need members and volunteers to do the hard work that you need to get done. So there's strategic planning. There's a lot of what I hate the word team building. There's a lot of team creation. There's a lot of setting expectations and just communicating with each other about, okay, Kara, you and I have decided that we're going to serve in this role, paid or volunteer, whatever it might be. We're on a corporate board or whatever. What's your expectation? What do you want to get out of it? And what do you expect of me? And let's share that so that we really become in lockstep and that we now become a team. And you know that I've got your back and you've got my back, and we're comfortable speaking the truth to each other. That's where mostly I spend my time, because as we mentioned earlier, I really live in sort of two confined spaces, and I like being confined in the spaces of leadership, service, goodness, giving back. And you can bring that to any corporate consulting job that pops up, and it usually moves the needle quite a bit if everyone's committed to giving the best of themselves in service to others.
Very true. So what is one of the best pieces of advice you've ever gotten?
Well, I would say there are two. The one gentleman who I always reference as my mentor was a gentleman by the name of Colonel Ned Humphreys, retired Air Force veteran. He gave me my first job in the newspaper business. I did not choose to become a speaker, even though my father was part of the first original group of motivational speakers. I wanted to be a journalist. And so a job came up at a daily newspaper in Mobile. I went to apply for it. And I was way out of my league and very arrogant and very entitled about, well, this was my job and I was the best person for it. And when it came to some certain skill sets that I needed, when Colonel Ned asked me about them, I did what any arrogant 21-year-old would do. I lied. I said, "Oh, absolutely. I can develop film. I've done this." So he told me this later, because I was so full of myself at the time. I didn't realize I was way out of my league and dealing with someone who saw right through all the BS. He sent me out on an assignment to fail. He knew I was going to fail, and I failed miserably. And I came back with my tail between my legs, and I had to fess up. And I get up to leave, and he goes, "Oh, no, wait, no, where are you going? You got the job." And I was floored. I thought, oh, he's really messing. He's really going to make me just live it. And he said, "Sit down, young man." And he goes, "First of all, you took it farther than I thought anyone would ever take it. Let's deal with that." And he gave me the best piece of advice I ever had is, if you don't know how to do something, ask for help, show up prepared, and probably the best one is, don't try to BS a BSer, because there's always someone who can see through, this facade that you have. So that was very informative. Colonel Ned was quite generous with me. He should have fired me on the spot. He should have been very, very mean to me. I'm glad he wasn't. And so I've remembered that through the years. Listen, people come to a situation like that. They're looking for a job or they're looking for an opportunity, and many times they're desperate, or they just want it so bad, or they've just put all their eggs in that basket. And you still have to be prepared, and you still have to be honest, and you still have to do the work. But I just appreciated the grace that he extended to me, and I try to remember that is that we're all in need of grace, and we can all be grateful and to people who have extended that to us. And that is leadership, by the way. All of these lessons, it's funny. I believe my life has been a series of encounters, mostly on a motorcycle, that have put me in a place to go, aha, that's leadership. That's what it looks like. That's service. Do that thing. Be that person. So Colonel Ned, that he nailed it for me. He saved my bacon and gave me an opportunity to have a career that I really love. So thank you, Colonel Ned. He passed away a few years ago and was buried with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery. So he was a great man.
Wow, I'm so glad that you had that. So, are there any last words of wisdom? Anyone that you would recommend that our listeners listen to, books, podcasts, anything like that?
Well, I would tell your listeners to do what they clearly already know, and that's continue to listen to yours, because this is a great forum. And I looked across some of the guests you've had, and you've really got a variety of people and perspectives, but they all do live in leadership and service and accountability and growth mindset. So I would say do that. Find a mentor, read a good book. Full Throttle Leadership is just one of them. There are many out there. But I will give you the best piece of advice for a leader from the seat of a motorcycle. You and I talked about it earlier, and I don't want to not say that for the record. So, one of the things that we tell when we're training people to become road captains, which means they're moving from the back of the pod up to the pod to leading the ride. And one of the things we tell them in terms of, yes, be prepared, and yes, know all of the things you need to know from a skill set. But here's the deal: when riding lead, don't spit. And what that means is if you're going down the road at 70 miles an hour, and for whatever reason your mouth gets a little dry and you decide you're going to spit, where does it go? Well, it
Back on everybody else.
blows back on everybody else. And let me tell you what, anything traveling into your face at 70 miles an hour, bugs, spit, grime, dirt, whatever it is, it can take you off the bike just like that. And so can the words of a leader. Our words as leaders of organization, leaders of people, they have impact. And so we have to be very careful about the words that we use. Colonel Ned could have spit when arrogant 21-year-old Stephen Foster, who had no business applying for that job and was not even being truthful and honest about his capabilities, he should have spit. He chose not to. He chose to keep me on the bike. And so that is my advice to every leader. You have an obligation. I don't care if you own your company like I do. You didn't build it all by yourself. You had great people help you build it. You had great mentors and influences. You as a leader, we as leaders, on the national stage, at the local stage, in business, wherever, we have an obligation to take people where they want to go, to help them build capability and accountability, to take them from the back of the pod to the front of the pod and let them lead their own rides to serve others. That's leadership. Plain and simple. Service to others, not self.
The very last thing, I know I was going to stop with that, but I have to go here because I can feel your compassion. What do you have to say to the people who have, since COVID, really shut themselves down? They're staying in their house, their food's being delivered, everything's being delivered, and they want nothing to do with anyone outside of the four walls.
Well, listen, we all have to take care of our own health and our own safety, and I get that. But let me just kind of say, for the record, we're a tribal people. We're tribal. We have to gather around the campfire in whatever that means. That could be your church, that could be school, that could be work. You can't grow within your own knowledge, and everything can't be consumed digitally. You've got to go develop those people skills. Now is not the time to be fearful. We just came out of 2 years of fear and uncertainty and just absolute shutdown. That time has passed. So I would encourage everyone to find something that you're passionate about. We're all passionate about stuff. If you stayed home and you just binged Netflix, you got some work to do. But maybe you learned how to play the guitar, or you learned how to write, or you were fond of reading, and you get whatever it might be. Then find a community that loves to do what you love to do. Engage with that community and start being intentional about getting out and giving back. It will come back to you in ways that you just can't imagine. I had no idea when I set out on that solo motorcycle ride. I thought it was going to be a fun ride, a couple of beer stops, we'd raise a little money, and I'd have a great story to tell. The reality is it was so much more than that, because the ride wasn't about me. It was about the boot campaign, and it was about serving others. And I still have people today. That ride was over 10 years ago. I still have people that I met on that ride that reach out to me. I still have people say, come and tell us about the ride. We want to hear about it, because that means that ride was sustainable, and you want your life to be sustainable. So get out, engage, fuel up the tank, roll on the throttle, and ride.
I love it. Stephen, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with our audience.
This is my pleasure. I had a great time. I can't wait to, hear the feedback from your audience. Thank you again for the opportunity. And I know I don't have to say it to you, but I sign it off this way all the time. Go full throttle.
I love it. I love it. And guys, please leave comments below. Stephen will be happy to answer your comments. Get his book. We'll link that below as well. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.